Okay. Good morning, Scott. How are you?
I'm great, thanks, Tom.
Good, good, good. The sun's shining. Everybody, you seem happy. I'm happy today. So we're on a good day. So it's good to be recording on a good day, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just found out we're both fellow West Ham fans, which is, for me, not as common as it seems. Like you seem to have a strong connection to the club, which is pretty exciting.
I'm like a truffle Labrador. Okay, I can sniff out West Ham wherever I go. It's quite interesting. So when you travel around the world like I have, I find West Ham bars wherever we go. There's West Ham bars in Sydney, and they're all across Australia and other random countries. But you don't find Arsenal pubs. You don't find Man United pubs. It's quite peculiar. So West Ham, once you get it, is a bit of a cult club. It's got, once you're in, and you get it. You know. And that's why there's loads of us, but we don't have too much success, in all fairness. So we don't have too many plastics, as we affectionately call them.
Yeah,
On that topic, okay, so you're from Australia, Scott?
Yes, correct.
Okay, what got you into West Ham?
Well, I had the most amazing soccer coach, or called football, but I played from when I was 5 up until I was 18, and I only stopped to go play Aussie rules. But we played at a state league level, like the highest level in our state, and I think it's called National NPL or something now. But he was one of the most incredible impacts in my life. He was an electrician. But he had this fundamental approach and love of football that I didn't, in a way that I can't explain it. It was not anything I'd experienced here in Australia. And his family, his son was one of my best friends. His daughter was kind of like a girlfriend for a little period of time. And they were just one of the most wonderful families. And I just adored them. And he had such a huge impact on me. And he was such an incredible he was a really amazing guy.
And he was West Ham.
And he was, and yes, I was getting caught up. He was West Ham, and anything he said, I was like, I'm in. So I became a West Ham fan. It was back when, most of my friends were United or Liverpool. They were mostly red, and we played for a club that was Berwick, which was red and white, which was Liverpool and Man United. So there was that association of wanting to kind of follow that path, but no, whatever he recommended was my following.
Well, I'll tell you quite an interesting fact. I think it's been around since the 70s, is my understanding, is the youth system you've got in Australia where you go through the state and what have you, is owned by West Ham. It has been, and they've done it quietly for years. So they offer, I think it's 2 or 4 scholarships every year to the best Aussie school kids. Okay, and they fly them over to finish the schooling, and they train them for the academy. There's been quite a few go through that. There's some names you know, but they've owned that quietly for many, many years, and so it's deeply embedded into Aussie culture. But when you work your way up as the school kids. Man City have just copied it. They've just done something, but that's only through a club in Melbourne. Whereas West Ham, you can see it, they tour all around the actual coaches.
Yeah, wow, that's good to know. That's really good.
Okay, well, listen. Okay, but it has given us a nice segue. Okay, so I like to hear people's stories on the basis of where they come from, where they're going. Okay, and by chance, we've stumbled into a gentleman and his family that's had a big impact on you and your life. Now, I'm sure there's other people who've had lots of influences on you and steered you in different directions. But your eyes lit up when you spoke about this gentleman. Okay, and I've got a funny feeling, if my intuition is correct, that's probably one of the biggest influences on the directions you've taken in your life.
Well, I am getting a bit emotional. Yeah, you're right. I do think about him. They moved into state a while ago. Yeah, he did. He had one of those impacts of a male role model that. You're right. He had he just. I am getting emotional thinking about it. He just had this ability to. There was he had some structure. And when we had to vote to see who was going to be captain of the team, and I was just so excited that it was going to, like, there was two guys on the team that I looked up to and really liked, and then when they did the voting, which we'd never had before, it was always someone just like the coach's son type of thing, and when they actually voted me, and it was one of the times when I went to myself, wow, I adore these guys. These are like, I was 16 or 17, but for them to have picked me, I still remember the smell in the change rooms and the connection. And then he goes, "Oh, you're going to wear this badge, like the thing." And there was this like structure to just how things could be done. And he had a way on how to treat people and how to interact. And when things didn't go right, this is how you would deal with it. And he did it in a way that I hadn't been in such alignment with. Like I'm on the spectrum, ADHD and stuff, and so I had struggled so hard with teachers and coaches. I'd always tried so hard, but I couldn't interpret what they were saying in a way that I could hear that was the best for me, and I was always super enthusiastic, but he did it in a way that just enabled I felt like I understood what he had to say, and then when he said it, I could do it, and there was a really good reaction, as opposed to someone would say it, I'd hear it the wrong way, and then it would go pear-shaped a lot. And so I appreciate you actually bringing it up. I hadn't connected the dots as well as I had just then, so yeah.
Okay, so it's fair to say this gentleman got you. Okay?
Yes.
But do you think, in reflection, that he tweaked his communication style for you?
I was trying to think that through as I was coming through it. I don't know. He seemed to ruffle the feathers of other people in a way that I did. So I think him and I were probably more alike. And like, I would have gone to war for him, like if anyone said anything, and I remember a couple of times he got upset with me and I was really quite taken aback, but they were good reasons to be upset with me. He was like holding me accountable in a really good way, but he was also not having a go at me. He was just like, no, that behavior wasn't acceptable. This is a better way of doing it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Rather than you're not paying attention, you're not smart, you're not listening to me, those types of things. So I think looking back on it, look, he may have adjusted, but I feel it was more when I became a coach for a while, and when the kids who were struggling, they'd been booted off other teams and they came to mine, I knew what that was like. And so their parents at the end of the season was just really happy because they were like, you get my son. And it was just interesting that they just needed to be heard and listened to in a slightly different way. And I think you don't need many people in your life like that to come along. Well, it's nice to have someone like that come along, and I do know since then some of those kids often refer back to the challenges they faced and how I helped them go through that. So, which I hadn't put together until right now. So,
okay. So by the sounds of it, it sounds like he saw a little bit of himself in you. So there's a little bit of legacy or even succession planning, which is clearly continued down again.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I did feel this, like, I didn't consciously maybe, but I thought, actually, when I wanted to coach my son because I thought it'd be fantastic, and it was. I loved it. But the kids that had been given a lot of grief and were getting a lot of trouble at school, just by looking at it from a different angle, they transformed in some amazing ways. And I learned a lot about myself, about how being accepted for who you were could be so powerful. And but it was, and now I know it was because of, so what a legacy he did have, like the stuff he did for me. And I know the difference it had on some of the kids that I coached, and I hold that dearly from that. So yeah.
Okay, well, so I'm glad I asked that question. I'm glad we've got West Ham to thank for all of this as well.
Yes, we do, for sure.
So, okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. Okay, I know there's probably a million and one dots to join up in between, but we don't have too big a slot to talk.
Yep.
Okay. Who is Scott Baker today?
Scott Baker today, I'm a father of 3 kids, teenagers, all 19, nearly 20, 19, 16 and 13, 2 boys and a girl. Always wanted to be a dad since I was a little kid. Favourite show was The Brady Bunch. And I just love that whole, just wanted to be a dad. And so that's something I really love. Got a golden retriever who I have to beg to take on walks. Not really, she's... I hope you didn't even hear the word, but I have a partner, and I run an AI business now.
Okay, all right. Listen, kids and dogs, that's where our lessons are. You know, you see the behavior in the child, and that's where we learn and their innocence and how they view the world. But dogs, they teach us emotional intelligence, in my opinion. I've got a boxer, and when I was training him, and he's a bit scatty sometimes, I was very strict on him for his own good. Obviously, now he's a very well-behaved dog. So I used to feel a bit bad, but he used to forgive me immediately. So he was the definition of unconditional love. And I'm like, how do you master that? Because I can't. Okay, so kids and dogs got a lot of time for it, and I levitate towards people in that situation. But let's talk about your business. We've got AI. Now, AI is one of those things, specifically generative AI, is on the tip of people's tongues.
Yeah.
My understanding, and I'm not a tech guru, but I do business, is AI has been around for quite some time, longer than the people were venting about it. Okay, generative AI a little bit different, maybe. But what space of AI are you in? And it's a loaded question. My apologies.
Okay.
And where do you foresee things going? How it affects people's lives?
Well, there's a lot there. Where I'm involved is I coming back to that point of with being on the spectrum and struggling to understand and the translating. I started using ChatGPT very early days, like before it was kind of, and I was just asking it lots of questions, and I had this intense desire to learn, always have, but I was always struggling because I would ask a question, didn't quite get the answer, I'd ask another question, and people would start saying, hey, stop asking questions, you're getting annoying. Whereas AI never did that, and it was like this personal assistant that I could learn how to do stuff, and it was transformational in me understanding a lot of things about how my mind worked and how I was uniquely wired. And then I started coming up with all these different ideas, started presenting them to investors, and I was getting knockbacks all the time. And then I presented it to one person, and what my AI does is think of it like a ChatGPT, but it's a personalized version in that you answer 4 quick questions. You can do audio, so you can just talk the answers, and it'll build like a personalized ChatGPT to your target audience in your tone of voice, easily and effortlessly. So you can become like a copywriter, marketing person almost instantaneously without having to learn how to do all those things. You can just ask it, hey, can you write me an email, or can you write me a social media post, or can you write me a webinar, or can you write me a whatever you need. So it's to... And with some of the AI at the moment, it's like learning how to prompt, which is like learning how to do it. But what I want to do is bypass that and allow the everyday person to, hey, I just want a nice email that does this, that sounds like me, but goes to my target audience, as opposed to having to learn how to do all of the bits and pieces within AI. So that's where I came in.
Okay, I like that, and I like. So it seems like your life experiences have led you to kind of a purpose-led business. To the point of translation and personification. Well, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I've got a little list that comes out every now and again.
No, you're spot on. That's it. Actually, what was really where it kind of came about was I was having this issue communicating with the majority of people in a way that I kept thinking, like, I'm missing something here. And my ex-wife we're still good mates. We co-parent really well, but no longer together. But she used to always ask me to take the bins out, and I used to say yes. And in my mind, it was like she was asking me, not saying, hey, can you take the bins out, literally. And I know it sounds quite pathetic when you say, well, she's actually telling you to take the bins out. But I only heard, hey, can you take them out? I'm like, yeah, I can, but I wouldn't do it. And I realized later that maybe there was more that she was asking. And I know it sounds quite simple, but it helped me unpack that when someone says one thing, it could be 5 or 6 things they're actually asking you that you aren't aware, well, I wasn't aware of. So when I was asking it with ChatGPT, it said, oh, there's 5 things, and I wasn't seeing the other 3. And I was like, whoa, where am I missing this in other parts of my life? And then I was noticing it was quite prolific. I was only picking up on, I was very literal, and I didn't like sarcasm, even though I was sarcastic. So I was like, I would only hear elements of things. And so then when I started playing around with it, I realized that I could, my unique way the brain was wired, I could help that translate what people were saying. That was the goal. So technically, you picked up on it very quickly. It was like I wanted a translation tool. When someone says this, what do they really mean? And that's where that came from.
Well, essentially, what we do as human beings is we inherit the systems and process from the generations before and before them. So it continues back to your legacy point. And we've inherited a structure of language which works for most, but not for all, which is why dyslexia, for example, which I'm dyslexic, exists. Yeah.
I've got a new client. Well, I've got dyslexia as well. So yes, totally. Well, this might make it. Does it? So what I'm saying, does it kind of relate? Do you relate to what it is?
Absolutely, because the context is, if the language rules are different, we wouldn't be dyslexic; everyone else would be.
Yes, and okay, so I love that, because I'm so excited that you said that. I've been quite. I haven't mentioned about my ADHD or dyslexic stuff for most of my life, but now what I'm realizing is the value of, like, I've since found out there's so many people who are so good at articulating verbally, but I'm terrible. Well, I'm getting better at doing the text part. And I wanted to create a tool that would allow these people these incredible ideas that maybe they can't articulate in a way that everyone else can simply and easily, but they can talk it into it, and then it can translate. And when you see someone on the spectrum answer the 4 questions and they're not that good at writing, they get really emotional, and it's like, if I could swallow a thesaurus, this is how I would communicate. And it's so, I love it so much. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. I did have another question, but it's gone in, it's gone out, and I'll remember it when we stop recording. That's how it works, which means we probably need to speak again. But what's the name of your business and this, of the product?
Yeah, it's called revgenhub.com. So REVGEN hub.com. And you can have a 7-day free trial. People can go and have a play on it. It's AI. You asked another question earlier, and I didn't finish that part of the question, was where do I think it's going? I really think, I know there's a fair bit of, there's some doom and gloom speakers out there, and there's some people but I don't think anyone really knows where it's going, other than I believe there's going to be such unique specialities required for different aspects of it. Like I'm actually really good at the creating images as well, and yet I might spend 4 to 8 hours a week on it, and I'm getting behind. Whereas last year I might have spent half the week doing image learning, whereas now I've got a really good basis for doing it, but I haven't been able to keep up with all of the changes. And then there's so many subtle idiosyncrasies within that and then there's certain types of imagery that is very hard to create, and others. So I think what it's going to do is there's going to be a stream of specialists required to use certain aspects of AI. And I think it will create a lot of opportunities. I think certain roles will be reduced, kind of like the typewriter. The typing assistant was gone because we could do our own typing. I think it'll be kind of, my belief is it'll be, I hope it'll allow people who maybe had a disadvantage of being able to communicate effectively, will be able to communicate more effectively. And I think some of those people who have been kind of maybe held back based on the traditional methods may be able to bring those skill sets forward faster. But I think it's going to create a wealth of opportunities for lots of different people. There will be segments affected, but I think it'll be.
I think you're quite right to point to the fact that there will be roles that are amalgamated or disappear entirely or lessened. That's a guarantee, I would say. That's what happens with efficiencies new ways of doing things. But people shouldn't be doom and gloom about that, because that's happened throughout the history of work. You know, if you actually do some research, some of the old job titles that are there, they're almost comical now. So people actually did that. That was a living, that's a career. And then even to the modern day, you know, you look at maybe like construction, you know, roles where it was 3 different jobs is now 1, because of how the efficiencies have gone, and it just is evolving. So it's always been there, and AI isn't the bad guy here. Okay, but with anything, there's going to be pros and cons, and I think there's plenty of pros there. I've just remembered my point I was going to make earlier. I like my ideas. I always have these ideas, and I do my best to follow up with them, but they come quicker than I can action them, and which clearly you can resonate with. But I remember I was going to make an app once, which everyone wanted to make an app. You know, it's the thing to do, and I haven't done it. But for that reason, I'm unlikely to, and I'm happy to share. I was going to make a sort of a tongue-in-cheek app as a girlfriend translator. Okay, so that you can put it up when your girlfriend's speaking, it put it in there, but it will say what she really means. Okay, so where you're talking about putting the bins out, okay, yes, I can.
Yes.
But I wasn't actually going to do it seriously, because I don't think anybody can translate that. It was going to be a joke one, to take in the piss a little bit.
Yeah.
Close to what they're saying, but you know, having some comical things, and I thought that was quite a good idea at the time, which I've never done. But yeah.
Well, it's I would AI for me. I have a partner, and last year there's some things going on that I didn't understand. And so I put it into ChatGPT, hey, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, can you help me? And had it not been for the ability for it to translate because as humans, we delete, distort, and generalize things as they come to our mind, and based on previous, and if we're looking at it from our unique perspective, we think it's like one particular outcome. And AI has this beautiful ability to not be biased on. If you give it information, it'll give you the potential outcomes, and often they're ones that we overlook based on our deleting, distorting, and generalizing of things. And so I think it's a brilliant idea. That's why I created Michael. Is like I wanted to translate people's thoughts and ideas into content. But no, I actually think it would be. I've used it. Have you seen the voice one where you can talk to it and it talks back and stuff? Mm-hmm. Well, when we were having a discussion and having a disagreement about something the other day, and I said, hey, would you better step in and help us see both sides of the story? And it did. And then I got to see what she was saying. She got to see what I was saying. And we both went, oh, we're talking about the same thing, yet we were disagreeing about it because we could only see it from this fixed approach. And then when I asked the ChatGPT to help, we were like, wow, we had more in common than we didn't. And I'm working with some people with some stakeholder stuff at the moment. It's like, hey, let's look at all the things we have in common. We might be extreme ends of the political spectrum, but if it's like a tape and we put it around in a circle, where they join, often they're so close, yet they have these polar opposite beliefs that they think are opposite, but they actually have more in common than they realize. And allowing someone to see the stakeholders' engagement in a particular topic, they don't have to agree with them, but they can go, hey, we have more in common, actually. We both want people to live longer. You just have a different view of how we want them to live longer. So, yeah, I know you thought it was an idea, but I think it's where it's going to help humanity, I believe, when we can see where we have more in common and stuff. I think it's an incredible opportunity.
It's interesting you say that. So I recently watched a rerun of one of my favourite series, Band of Brothers. Okay, true story, you know it. And it goes through all the highs and lows, the emotions, the extremities, and that's why I like watching stuff like that, because especially when it's true, is humankind at an extremity. Who are we in these situations? Who are we in the trenches? Who are we? We're not fed with being shot at and what have you, and seeing our friends maimed in front of us. And during almost the whole series, they hate the Germans. Okay, the Germans are bad. Okay, that's why they're fighting. And that's essential for war, is to have those polarizing opinions. And as soon as there's a them and an us, then you can take a them and an us, and you can take it to an extremity. And you can get people to create mass murder, homicide, and so forth. And outright atrocities of normal people who are school teachers and whatever. They're going out there, they're doing horrendous things because there's a them and us has been manipulated for what. I'm going off on another tangent here, but in the last 1 and 2 episodes, the war stops and they befriend the Germans, and they see them with their stories of what they say in defeat. They turn around, they talk about their camaraderie and what they were doing it for and why, and the penny drops of all of them. Hold on a minute, you're exactly the same as us. Human, we can see your face, we're getting along with you. We would do the same in your situation, and this whole the Nazis are terrible people. Well, so they're all fathers, brothers, sons, and so on, and they had that sort of eureka moment, a humbling eureka moment. Hold a minute, it still happened. We still argued, and yes, all right, maybe what your end goal's different where we're going, but individually, we've all got the same mentality, similar.
Yeah, and I think that's where, based on what you were saying, there's an incredible author called, he's passed now, but his name's Edward Bernays, and he was the guy that started propaganda, and he was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, one of the most underspoken people, but one of the most impactful people probably of the 20th century, on how he created propaganda, then changed it to I've forgotten the word they use in business now, but they didn't like the word propaganda, so they called it, I can't even think of it.
PR?
What's that?
It'd be PR or?
Oh yeah, public relations, sorry. Yeah, they went, so, but if you see this, the way this guy changed the way that we see the world, and he built this whole propaganda campaign about with the Germans in World War I, and saw how big of an impact it had when he went to the end of the war and saw how much they loved the Americans, and he was there helping them do the propaganda, and that whole the structure about how the human mind works, and what he took from Freud and how he turned it into as a to weaponize it, is just extraordinary.
And just going back one step here, so when you were saying, obviously, the difference between the human brain and the generative AI, so we're talking about the biases and the individual perspective, okay, you're saying that we get all this information comes in, we distort it and categorize it and so forth. Do you know what that's called?
It's part of NLP, and I have done my NLP course, but I can't remember the name of the actual.
It's IR. It's called IR, which is image recognition, okay? Wow. And we get 7 million hits of it a second, and it dilutes, it sorts it all out for us. This is the bit you need to pay attention to. There's a fire over here, there's a siren going off, there's some nice food here. It tells you, and it pieces it together. So it literally filters all that macro information as to what's important for your safety, for your greed, whatever it may be. So
yeah, that's right.
All right. So I'm curious, you talked about your son a little bit earlier. Okay, I'm going to try and wrap up it shortly as well. First thing I want to know about your son, if you don't mind, is it West Ham?
No, he's a huge football fan now, and probably a bigger fan than I am, and plays FIFA all the time. He's and also my middle son, who started playing football again this year, which was amazing. Every week, every Saturday, Sunday, I get to go watch them both play, which is, I just love it. But no, he started following, he's now following Chelsea. And I'm not 100% sure how that came about. I did go to the UK, and when I was over there, he was younger, and he said, could you get me a Chelsea kit? And I was like, okay. So I bought him a Chelsea kit, and now he's got Chelsea flags up in his room, and still has that little kit. He's now 19, but he doesn't. I think West Ham's a team. He still loves following the results for them, but he just hangs it on the about the scores. So unfortunately,
I think Chelsea have more players than they do fans in Australia.
Yeah, well, that'd probably be right. I'm still trying to remember. I think he liked one of the players playing FIFA, and from memory. It was, I can't remember the player's name, but yeah, he was a Richmond fan, so he was certainly following Richmond, and we'd been struggling as an AFL team for many years. And he's like, you follow Richmond and West Ham, Dad? Like, they're the worst combo you could ever have. And then we had a massive run on with Richmond, which was great. But yeah, West Ham, not so.
But that's it. That's where the lesson is you don't follow a team for its success. You follow it's like being a friend. You can't be a fair weather friend. You know, no. So you follow the club irrespective of results.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, he trains 2 nights a week and plays indoor on a Saturday and then plays on a Sunday. So my only thing, we haven't played together on the same team. I got really bad concussion a few years ago, and I haven't played since. But I'd be keen to play. I always want to play. It'd be great to play in a Sunday game with him or something like that.
Okay, so he's taken a wrong turn for his football team. I'll let you deal with that one. That's out of my remit. But is he maybe following you career-wise? Is there?
No, he's a plumber. Although he's very interested in what I am doing and stirs me up about it a lot, about how anything we talk about, he's like, oh, well, why don't you just AI at that? And we went away on the weekend camping, and we went and looked at this massive spillway, and we were standing at the spillway, and he's asking me these questions. I go, let's ask ChatGPT. And so we had this conversation with ChatGPT, and I learnt more of the spillway and the dam we were at than I could possibly have gone back and learnt. And he was standing there, and he just kept asking questions, because he's like me, he's very curious, kept asking question after question. He's like, wow, Dad, AI is amazing. And he loves to learn too. So he got a taste of, if you're seeking knowledge and you have, and I don't know if the information it gave was 100% accurate, but it gave enough information that it was like, well, I want to know more. A little bit like this conversation, you're wanting to know a little bit more. And so he's wanting to know more. And then all of a sudden he's like, wow. And he learnt it in a way that suited him, as opposed to how someone wants you to learn how they write it. And that can be effective for the people who match with that thing. But I think where it's powerful for people on the spectrum, or anyone, is you can ask a question and it answers it how you want to hear it. And if you don't hear it the way you want, you ask again until you get it. And that is beautiful for me. Like, it's like, wow, here's my personal mentor tutor who may not be getting it exact, but certainly answering questions in a fundamentally powerful way.
Love it. Okay, all right. Well, maybe we'll get to speak to him soon and see what his thoughts are on it. But for now, let's wrap this up. I'm very grateful for your time. I've enjoyed the conversation. I think we can talk more. I reckon there's loads of takeaways for people listening to this, personal and professionally. If someone wants to reach out to you about what you do, or something that resonates with what you said, what's the best way for them to contact you?
You can jump on my LinkedIn profile, which is Scott Baker. I think it's just Scott Baker's. I think I'll just double check, or revgenhub.com, and I'd love to have a chat. I'll just check my LinkedIn profile, but I think it's Scott Baker with an S. Yeah, that'd be the best way to reach out. That's Scott Baker on revgenhub.com on LinkedIn.
Love it. Okay, brilliant. Well, thanks a lot for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and week.
Cool. Thanks heaps, Tom.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you did enjoy it, had lots of takeaways from it. As before, please subscribe below so you can keep on top of any new releases we have. And also, if you would like to have your story told, just reach out with me, and I'd love to give you that platform. My best email address is tom@purplepatchconsulting.com. Thank you.